Ladies, gentlemen, what education for what development? When you listen to my biography, I'm not an expert in terms of education. But I'm also not an expert in terms of development. No. Why did I decided to address or to share some of my personal thoughts with you about this issue? Just because I used to teach, it means I used to have some contact with education in Africa, in Europe. And I've been dealing with a very interesting subject, how to help Africans join the job market in Berlin. And we realized very quickly that we have very competent young people coming from Africa, but 2/3 of those joining German companies, they fail after the probationary period. And while analyzing, we just realized there's something with our education that is not compatible with the system of Europe. So I thought, should we consider education separated from development? No. And then I proposed this formulation, not because I do have solutions, no. Just because I'm raising questions, and that are the questions I would like to share with you. But before starting, I would like to carry out some definitions, precautions, in order to avoid misunderstandings, in order to make sure that we understand, we share the same understanding about what I mean. So, education, it is all system of transfer of knowledge, we know. Out of the scope is what we call family education, social education. When I talk about development, I mean the complex definition as the United Nations has developed it. The development based on the development index. And when I talk about Africa, I mean a specific region, sub-Saharan Africa. So the information that I will be transferring to you are limited in the scope of what I've just told you about the different terms and concepts. So, the link. Education is one of the most powerful instruments for reducing poverty and inequality and lays a foundation for sustained economic growth. Development is a stage of being of society, of a state in which education is dedicated a critical role. It means education contributes to development by producing human resources who will take care of the challenges of the development. What are the challenges? It is personnel security, physical security, it is health security, it is food security, it is environmental security, it is freedom of speech. And the goal, the mission of any system is to produce people who provide those values, those very important aspects of our lives. That you won't see any developed country with a weak or neglected education system. For that reason, you see a very close link between education and development. Is this link between development and education true for Africa? What do you think? Can we apply the assumption I expressed at the beginning, according to which education and development are closely linked? Can we apply it to Africa? No. Okay. And another?
We would like.
You would like to apply it to Africa? Okay. If you say no, it means poverty is not being reduced in Africa. If you say no, it means inequality is not being reduced in Africa. If you say no, it means economic security in Africa is not being achieved. Maybe let's put the question differently. I pretend the development, or let's say the education system, shapes the development of the country. And I say, yes. He says no for Africa. I say, yes. Why do I say yes? Because we will see later that education in Africa is neglected. For that reason, we have those three problems. It is true in all continents. That is my assumption. Unfortunately, you are the one who are right. We have a problem here. But why do we have a problem? Why do we have a problem? I have formulated two main reasons according to my observation. The first is the lack of political will. It is a question. We know what that means, political will. Who define the budget for education? Politics. Who designs the education system? Politics. So, if there's a will, you have also a comfortable education system. Even in extremely materially poor countries, even in countries at war, if the political will is there, you will have a consistent education system. Just one example. I think you know the country Cuba.
Yes.
It's a country with very limited resources, material resources, natural resources they don't have. But a country with a very strong education system. Just because you have the political will being present there. Is the education in Africa adequate? I don't know. I would pretend to say no. And why, we'll talk about it later. So coming back to the political world. We spoke about the readiness, the willingness of politics to invest in different areas. Why do they invest in the defense, in the army expenditures? Because they think it is very important for them. And if they do not invest somewhere, it means they don't find it important. Quite simple. We have seen that the public expenditures on education on this time frame has been 4.1% of the GDP. The percentage shows already the readiness to invest into something one feels it is important. But please be very careful with 4.1, because if you look at that of China, you will have 4.2, even 4. In 2013, it was 4. But you cannot compare the 4 of China with 4 of Africa, because in absolute terms, we talk there about billions. In Africa, we talk about millions. And in that figure, you have a very huge disparity. You have countries like Lesotho, Botswana, who invest 12% of their GDP for education, whereas other countries like Chad invest 1.6%. So be very careful. And the result, only one of the results, is the map you see. You see the mosaic of literacy is more in Africa. It shows the disparity, first of all. And secondly, it shows that you have almost no region in Africa with the blue color that shows the high level of literacy. That is just a quantitative element to appreciate the importance politicians devote to the issue of education. Now, let's talk about the quality. The quality. What are the elements that I use to appreciate the quality? 2. It is, first of all, the content of the education, the model of the education, and then the curricula in different countries. What do they put in the education program, in the learning program? When we talk about inadequacy of the education model, we have inherited from the colonial area system, which we have implemented one-to-one. A very interesting fact is that as I started learning or studying law, civil law, family law, business law, I was using not a Cameroonian-based law, but the French-based law, one-to-one. Only when I left Cameroon that I realized that I consume a law based on values that were imported. To understand the consequences of this situation, of the identity crisis that generate that problem, is from the one side, we wanted to implement what we thought it was the model, the proper model, the European one. And we really thought, we did really believe in that, but we underestimated the strength, the force of our traditions. One example, the political system we had. We imported everything. Democracy, it was written everywhere in the constitutions, but we underestimated the fact that our tradition, according to our tradition, when you achieve for the whole life. You are not chief to be elected, to be re-elected. And such discrepancies, we had them also where in the education. What was the goal of the education systems in Africa just after the independence? To produce civil servants in order to be able to rule the modern state. That was the main goal, purpose of the education system. But this goal was achieved very quickly. In the 70s, we had already our state structures being led by Africans. Now, what was the next goal? There wasn't any. Or there was a goal. Economic development, that was the main slogan in the 70s, in the 80s. But we didn't adapt our education system to the realities. If you want people to lead business, you have to provide them with skills for business management. Unfortunately, the education system that we got in the 40s were still the same the whole time. And the other point is, as we realize that we need experts for economic development, for business management, we started training them abroad. We started creating some institute in Africa. He reminded you that I completed an institute for business management. It was the first, we were the first generation in that institute, which was the copy of a Canadian high school for business management. We were the first generation, meant to overtake and lead companies. But which companies? State companies, they are being ruled according to different precepts and principles. And there again a discrepancy. In most French-speaking African countries, the best education was to study, to study, to study. The more you had degrees, the better it was. But the economy, the society could not absorb those resources. It meant we had also a gap. And that's the reason why I'm talking about the inadequacy of the education model. And when we talk about the curriculum, we are being taught subject, and I have to tell you, I've never understood why I had to learn that subject. And when I asked my niece, who was in Cameroon, what are you learning? They tell me the same, they are still learning the same subject I learned some 30 years ago. Let me tell you one. I told you that we realize at the RACIBB that 2/3 of the people we assist to get the job, 2/3 of those people, they just fail to continue. Why? Not because they don't have, and I have also to differentiate, because we have in Berlin 2 types of Africans. We have the first generation. It means those who grew up in Africa like I, and who came here after some studies already, some degrees. We came with a background, a cultural background, and we still have them here. And we have this other generation, our children, who grew up here. Speaking about those 2/3, I mean my generation. We completed universities with degrees, but we were not able to sustain our collaboration in the companies. Why? And there you have a cultural factor. We realize we do not communicate. We don't know. We know how to communicate, but not the way you communicate in Europe. We have people in the companies who cannot, during the discussion, argue against their supervisor, because from the cultural point of view, it is not good. Another problem we have is we communicate verbally, orally. We don't write. And we know the production of emails in this country. I'm working in the company. I'm telling you, if after one day I do not check my mailbox, the next day I have 100 at least of mails. It means you have to write, you have to communicate. You have engineers who belong to a team, and they are reluctant to share their ideas. They are reluctant to go into controversy. And it's a problem. At the end of the day, they think he's a good guy, but he's not a good team player. It is a cultural problem. But those of our children who are born here, who grew up here, they cope with that very easily because they grew up with that. They have learned at home already to say, Papa, you are not right. I cannot say that to my father. They are used to tell them, their teachers, but I read it differently. I heard something differently from what you are saying. We cannot. The value of the respect, we call it. So, what are the consequences? It's very simple to see. We have, we produce human resources the market cannot absorb. Where are they? They are sitting and looking for jobs. Those who have already lost any hope, they sit in the boat and die. And those resources that are supposed to contribute for development, they fly away. I'm here. I could have been maybe more useful to my country, but I'm here. And without that resources, we have the persistence of underdevelopment. Now what? Now what? Should we continue to do as it is normal, business as usual, or we should have the courage to say, hey, there's something wrong, and try to change things? How can we change the things if we do not understand the challenges we will be facing in this century, in the millennium? And what are the challenges? Food security, health security, physical security, political security, environmental security. It is not new. It is not new. The new thing is, you said something? Okay. The new thing is that the world is different. The world is different. If in the 60s, you could say, I will address the problem of food in my country, not taking care of what is going on abroad, it was okay. But today, it isn't. So the globalization, that is the new dimension of the problems, of the development problems we are facing. And the question is, can we address these problems in this context with the same education system? I don't want to give you an answer because when I look at your eyes, I read the answer inside. Business as usual, no way. Why? Because the traditional system thinks locally and also acts locally. It's no longer possible. The system is too expensive for modest African national budgets to create universities, to build them, to pay teachers, schools. We are not able to do that. If the situation has improved for the last 20 years, it's mostly due to NGOs, to foreign assistance. The system, the existing system is too expensive. And when we see that we don't have money, we have to think twice. Why is it not good? The system is heavy, static, with less room for creativity. Yes, it's true. You have the basic school, you have the secondary school, you have university. You have to go through that system. You have maybe 12 years, if you are lucky, 12 years. You go to school and you gather what? Theory. Theory. And after that, they say, okay, now you can go and work. Hey, the system is rigid. It's not good. We need a different system with creativity. when we talk about Y generation, there are people who don't want to sit somewhere 8 hours. And I look at you, you have been sitting here now maybe for 3 hours, you're already tired. And it's normal. And we want our children, the generation coming after us, to sit 8 hours in a classroom. The system, we have to rethink it. It is, yes, a elitarian system. When I say that, I focus my statement on French-speaking African countries. We have some kind of sickness of degrees. It's like in France. Who are you? Oh, I have PhD. Oh, well, very respectful. Without PhD, without master degree, you have less chance to get a job on the market. In France, they say A-level plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. That is the way they think, and that's what we have imported. And in Cameroon, you have almost 40% of young people with master degree walking on the road. Yeah, you wanted to ask the question? Sorry? Sorry?
I want to say that I think very similar things are actually also in Europe. You have master's degrees and PhDs, and they're all, people all look, wow, you have that. But in the end, they're sometimes not as worth as much as training people in something that is more needed. Because, like you say, there are a lot of qualified people, but they're qualified for what?
Yeah.
And I think this is happening in Europe slowly too. Like it used to be first that not enough people, and now it's a lot of people are starting to get all these degrees and all this. And I think even the education system here is starting to not function properly anymore.
What's your name?
Nina.
Nina. Hey, what Europe is experiencing now, we have been experiencing it now for decades. Why should we wait until Europe formulate a new education concept before we follow? No, we have to be proactive. We have to anticipate, and that's the problem, the question. What I'm talking about is not the prerogative, the privilege of Africa, no. We are seeing it everywhere. That's the reason why I say we have to be rethinking. Maybe if we start rethinking, Europe will benefit from that, will learn from that. But if we wait until Europe has done it, and then we follow, then we have a problem. So I agree totally with you. Now you can ask questions anytime. Huh? So, rethink education in Africa. As I left the country, we didn't have a telephone at home in my house. I'm from a very poor family. We didn't have it. To call, it was something very special. It was even a sign of wealth. Well, you have telephone at home. Oh. My grandmother, she's not living in Douala. Douala is the biggest city in Cameroon. She's living in the village. I called lately and she told me her handy is old. She needs a new handy. Yes. It means that we have moved in the telecommunication area from a stage to a very high stage, and we have avoided a transitional stage which you know in Europe. Pain. Almost any African people has a handy. I'm speaking about Cameroon. And even in the villages. Do you know what that means? It means we have a very fundamental tool for interaction with the whole world. Why don't we think about basing the new concept of our education system using that tools? When the telecommunications enables you to contact Europe, it means the worldwide world can be also used. And do you know what that means? First of all, you see Africa is now linked to the whole world. We live in a world where you think globally, although you act locally. We have got investment in the telecommunications. And we are even, let's say, benefiting from the progress Europe and North America and Asia have made. Because the satellites, we don't need to send them, we just use. So it is a very important tool. And you have heard about virtual education. You have heard about virtual education. I'm sitting here and I'm following a training taking place in Singapore. It means my niece who is in Douala, who cannot afford to sit comfortable in the classroom, can also, if it is well organized, follow some subjects taking place in Europe, even at the same time. Is that possible? It's possible. It means there's a room for creative approach, and to reorganize things. And the question will be, do I need a huge place, huge building to educate children? It's a question. And if we talk about the Y generation, that are individual people. You give him his iPad, his tablet, you give him his smartphone, and he does not need you. He sits and he communicates with friends, and then he can also be walking. You will see a very amazing picture here. I have it here. Normally, it is not African. Because we Africans, as soon as we are together, we speak with each other, with one another. We speak, we laugh. But what is happening? There, you have two people, two Maasai guys, they have smartphones or handies, and they are concentrated on it. You see these two kids, instead of playing with one another, what are they doing? So, just install them, their subject, on it, and they will also be reading them. Think about it. It is an incredible tool. When we go to sing in the choir, we have children, because we have people coming with their children, 2 or 3 children per person. They are too loud. And we've thought, hey, we cannot continue singing when they are shouting. And we cannot also put them outside. And some guy told us, let us just invest into iPads. We are quiet. They are concentrated. And now their parents are taking the homeworks on their iPads, and they're working on on it, whereas we are singing. So it means the form of the new education system matters. It has already started, but we have to really systemize it, to spread it out. E-learning. The content matters. We should stop filling our brains with theories. Theories. I studied business management 4 years long, but I never saw a company from inside. Is that normal? It isn't. And they expect me after my degree to go and work for a company. It's not possible. It means we should organize such programs, such educational programs, so that at a very early age, they detect what is the sympathy of the person, of the young guy, and very quickly to try to bring practice and theory together. And I would even say less theory and more practice. And there's something we have to learn to do. We are living in a world where it's easier to move from one place to another. Hey, why don't we try to apply what a great system Europe has ever developed, this Erasmus? Why don't we spread it to Europe and Africa so that European children and young people, they go for 1 semester to Africa, and it won't be a waste of time because they will learn something you have lost in Europe: creativity. You have got everything. Everything is planned, organized. You just follow the mainstream. In Africa, nothing is organized. Nothing is there. You have to think. You have to be creative. So, you want to play billiard in a village? Please, you have it. And this creativity, I say it is what is missing in Europe. And that is something you will learn there, because you will get into an environment where you have to learn what we call the survival art. Improvisation. Of course, if our African kids, they come here, they also understand a different way of thinking, of doing. It will also, let's say, help our education system. It will not only help. We are talking about the globalized world. It means there will be only one world, regardless of where you are. You will see now you are sitting with the black fellows. You talk with them. They sit with you. Some complex, some presumptions you had, some cliche you had are going down, meeting them. The same from them. As I was a child, I thought, oh, the white man, he cannot make mistakes. I even thought, oh, the German, everything is well organized. No chaos. There's chaos in German. Because now we are mixing up. We are enriching one another. And there's one thing that means in Africa. It means also that we should, that is my personal statement, It is very controversial. And my brothers sitting there sit very well. We should forget what we used to call the African way. There is no African way more. There's one way, the globalization. It's not that I'm saying it's good or bad, but there's a fact. There's a trend of globalization, getting more and more speed. Either you jump into that train or you remain back. That's the point.